What's up, everybody? It's your host, Damian Dusten from the GetBack podcast, dropping some content for you guys on a Monday night, which is pretty ridiculous, especially coming from me as someone who, can tend to be a little lazy, I'll say, but it's good to be with you guys here. And I'm making some content on the NFL, the first day of NFL free agency, as well as how it affects my mock draft, as I'm going to drop my mock draft 3.0 with you guys today. And hopefully, we can compare and contrast what you guys think. And I'm really, first of all, what a day for free agency. I mean, when you look at this free agency this year, it reminds me of the year, I believe it was 2016, 2017, when the NBA raised its salary cap by over $30 million. And it caused these almost outrageous contracts to be put out there. I mean, everybody remembers the Los Angeles Lakers signing Timothy Mozgov to that absurd $64 million deal. That, it reminds me so much of that this year for the NFL, because some of these contracts, I think what really throws me off is the guaranteed money. The guaranteed money is something that it really stands out, especially for some of the players that we're going to talk about. And I think, without further ado, we should really just jump into it and, talk about what I think the biggest moves are and where I think some teams stand with these moves. First of all, DK Metcalf. Let's talk about DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf was coming off of, an off-on season with the Seattle Seahawks. The inconsistency of Geno, I think, really hindered his performance this year. And I think a new scenery for him was the right direction, as that team is entering sort of this, I wouldn't say a rebuild because of the Sam Darnold accusation, which I think we'll dive further into that a little bit later. But DK going to the Steelers to pair up with George Pickens, it's a move that I do like if you're trying to, pair your star wide receiver with another star wide receiver, because I think George Pickens is a good number one. But I think, we see his attitude towards the game. I don't think that he has solidified himself as a number one with guys like DK and, the other likes of some other star receivers. We can look at Justin Jefferson. We can look at Nico Collins, some of these guys who have really established themselves as number one receivers in their respected teams. Now, DK obviously traded to Pittsburgh for a second-round pick and some other picks, but what really got me was the extension, a 5-year, $150 million deal. That tells me that the Steelers really wanted to get another playmaker to whoever's going to be the quarterback this year. And I think that jumps right into our next move is, are the Steelers going to acquire Aaron Rodgers? And, this has been the talk of the town for, I want to say, the past 24, 48 hours, because Aaron Rodgers obviously not going back to the Jets. That was made very clear weeks ago. And I think the only two, or I would say three, landing spots I can see Aaron Rodgers going to are the Tennessee Titans, the New York Giants, or the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, when you look at the three rosters of each team, which one is well constructed to plug a 40-year-old quarterback into the lineup with low risk and high reward? Well, I think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, no doubt, because with that accusation of DK Metcalf, obviously they made some moves on that offensive line. I think they're almost setting up to get Aaron Rodgers at a run for a championship. Now, do I think that they will win a championship? Absolutely not. I think quarterback play to win a championship now has to be superstar-esque, and I think we've seen that the past couple years with, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady when he won with the Buccaneers, Jalen Hurts this year, who was probably the most composed quarterback we've seen as of late. I think it's a move that they'll still win 10, 11, maybe 12 games, but I don't see them winning a Super Bowl, or I could see them being a championship team and then losing out. Now, let's move on a little bit more. Let's talk about someone who we talked about on the podcast a little bit, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold signing a 3-year, $100 million deal with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this move, I think it was a no-brainer for both sides. They both had a lot of interest in it with each other. I know Sam Darnold, that was one of his top teams, was going to Seattle because of Kubiak, who fits the system with what Sam Darnold's trying to do. And I think this is a good move for their retool, but I don't love it because I feel like swapping Geno for Sam Darnold is like swapping, an apple and a pear. I mean, obviously they're different, but they serve the same purpose. And I just think, like I said, it doesn't really move me like that, and it's something that I think it's an overpay. But this is just the new salary cap, and this is something that we're just gonna have to deal with moving forward. Now, moving on to a big piece that we discussed a little bit on the podcast that I think is a huge acquisition is Josh Sweat going to the Arizona Cardinals. Just roughly around $70 million extension. This is a big move for Arizona. Now, for many who don't know, Arizona actually made a semi-big move for the trade deadline this season, which was acquiring Brandon Browning from the Denver Broncos, who I believe is actually a very good edge player that can get you, maybe 8 to 10 sacks if he can reach his ceiling. I think obviously, him and Sweat. The recipe for beating the Chiefs was four-man rush, get pressure on the quarterback, and I think that's going to be the recipe just to win games in general in this offseason. You see a lot of these teams going after defensive linemen and offensive linemen to try to battle David versus Goliath, just to see who can have the upper hand on the line of scrimmage here. Now, let's dive into Cameron Bynum. Cameron Bynum, safety from Minnesota, going to the Colts. This was a huge deal, as I believe the Colts already had a solid defense, but they've obviously have made a message because they didn't make any moves for offense, which leads me to believe that they're going to do that via the draft. But solidifying this defense in free agency is telling us that they still believe that they're in not a rebuild, but just a retool in order to win. Now, all of this is very codependent on the development of Anthony Richardson. Do they select a quarterback late in the draft? We'll have to wait and see. I just don't know. I just don't know if that offense can hold up with the other offenses in the NFL. But Cameron Bynum is a huge pickup. Ball hawking safety, had 104 solo tackles in 2023, which led all safeties. And he is a big play stopper. We've seen guys out here trying to get big plays against Cameron Bynum, and he stops them, which I think is going to be key for the Colts, who allowed some of the most big plays this offseason. Now, moving on, we have Milton Williams, the defensive tackle from the Philadelphia Eagles, going to the Patriots for an ungodly sum of money. This is the Mozgov move, ladies and gentlemen. While I believe he is one of the best defensive tackles in the league, it is still, in my opinion, a slight overpay. When you look at Williams, obviously, his 6 sacks in the regular season at best. He was a rotational interior defender who is probably one of the best pass rushers at that defensive tackle position. It's to give a man $26 million per year, $100 million total, 104 to be precise. It's a lot of money, and I think it's something that, not that it will bite the Patriots in the ass, but it's definitely something that they can look at in the future if they run into some trouble and their season doesn't go as they anticipate it to go. Obviously, they signed Carlton Davis to that 4-year, $60 million deal, which I also think is a slight overpay, but he is a lockdown corner who has shown that he can clamp up the wide receiver number one, which is super important. So obviously the Patriots are making some moves, which I think is going to be pretty big for them in the development of Drake May. But they did it more so on the defensive side of the ball, which, I mean, that fits the Vrabel mindset. And I think really just the whole Patriots mindset is have a great defense, have a good quarterback, and be smart with the football. Now, moving on to a big move that happened today that I think it's going to be a wait and see move. Justin Fields to the New York Jets for 2 years, 30 million or 40 million, 30 guaranteed, which low risk, high reward in my opinion. While you look at the dollar amount and you say, wow, that's a lot of money, Justin Fields is a playmaker. Whether it's running the football, and we've seen vast improvement of him throwing the football this year for the couple games he played for the Steelers. This is a playmaker. And I think with Aaron Glenn at the head coach leading the charge, who's obviously a defensive-minded head coach, they're going to make sure they have the right guys in there that will fit the scheme of Justin Wilson. And it goes perfect because he gets to reunite with his wide receiver from Ohio State, Garrett Wilson. Moving on, speaking of the New York Jets, Jets lose their top corner, one of their top corners, DJ Reed, to the Detroit Lions. Detroit picks up a huge ball hawk playmaker in DJ Reed, who I think was the best corner in this offseason for free agency. And obviously, this is going to have major implications on that whole division. You see Chicago stacking up on the offensive lineman, Drew Dalman. Uh, they made the trade for Joe Tunley. This is the David Goliath that we talked about. The Chicago's building the O-line, and the Lions come right back and sign probably, like I stated before, the best corner in this free agency class. So it's a huge pickup for Detroit. I think Detroit only got better from this move, and it's gonna be another great season for them. Now, moving on, let's talk about Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin obviously had a lot of hype entering free agency, and I think he had more hype from different teams because of that injury, and it wasn't a no-brainer that he was going to resign. But the Bucs felt comfortable enough to pay the man 3 years, $66 million. Welcome back, and I think it's a perfect pay. I don't think you're losing anything here. Before he got injured, he was playing great. He was on pace to have one of the best seasons of his career. And I think it's great for Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans on one side, Chris Godwin on the other. It's going to be a match made in heaven like it's been the past 2 seasons anyway. So it was perfect pay. I like the move. A+. Now, let's take a look at some of the people who haven't been picked up yet and where I think they should go. Let's start off with someone who's on my number 1 big board, Jevon Holland. Safety from Miami. I think he's a top 5 safety in the league. And if I had to be a betting man of where he would go, it's going to be somewhere that can pay 20 annually, in my opinion. So I'm looking at, I would actually look at, the Bengals to maybe make a push for Jevon Holland. I would look at, obviously Miami's going to be interested in re-signing him. They're not just going to let him walk. That'd be crazy. And obviously a team that's lost a lot, the 49ers could potentially make a move at Jevon Holland. I know they've dropped a lot of players to try and free up some cap space, but it's just gonna be a big thing to see what they do. And I think overall Jevon Holland is a great player. We'll just have to wait and see. Next up, last but not least, another guy on my big board is Amari Cooper. At the age of 30, he's still a guy who can produce, and I think he didn't really get the chance in Buffalo, and I think that's what really hurt Buffalo in the playoffs, that they didn't give Amari a big chance, and he wasn't able to become comfortable in that offense with Josh Allen, that now he's bound to walk. I do not see him re-signing with the Buffalo Bills under any circumstances. That would be a big no-no for me if I was Amari Cooper, even though Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think if he had to go somewhere, I'm looking at a team like the Chargers, the Broncos. I'm looking at a team, you know what? Call me crazy. Any team in the AFC West could actually be a potential suitor for Amari Cooper. I think a reunion with the Raiders couldn't be out of the question. I think Denver obviously needs a veteran presence in the wide receiver room. Chargers need a veteran wide receiver as well to help the development of Ladd McConkey. And the Chiefs, who obviously are in dire need of some more playmakers. I mean, of course, you have Xavier Worthy and an aging Travis Kelce, but Amari Cooper could be a nice little security blanket to have because you don't really know if DeAndre Hopkins is going to re-sign as well. Now, the moment that you guys have all been waiting for, my mock draft 3.0 after this first day of free agency and the implications that I think that it has. As we take a look on the screen here, obviously, we have on the clock the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Tennessee Titans, I had them selecting, and let's take a look who we got here. On the clock, let's start the draft. And with the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, I have them selecting Travis Hunter. Now, Travis Hunter, I have for the longest I had them selecting Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter does slide just slightly in this draft due to that injury that we heard about. Even though it's not going to hold him out for the season, I still think it's something you look at, especially with an edge rusher like himself. And when you look at Tennessee, they still have a very good defensive presence. So getting the playmaker from Colorado and Travis Hunter, who can play both positions, is going to be critical, and I think that's the best pick for them. Now, on the clock, the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns have been linked to, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, a lot of these mediocre quarterbacks, but I don't think that's the smartest move for them. I think they have to select a quarterback. And in selecting a quarterback, I believe Cam Ward falls number 2 to the Cleveland Browns as he is the best quarterback in this draft class. Number 3, the New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants, what do they not need is the real question. There's so many guys out there that they need. Now, could they potentially draft Shador at number 3? Absolutely. It would be a very big reach at that, but when you look at it, it's quarterback or Abdul Carter, and you select the best player available because out of everyone else in this draft, I really just don't see them picking anybody else but Shador or, where's he at here? Abdul Carter. And for the sake of just the drama factor, I have Shador Sanders going number 3 to the New York Giants. 2 quarterbacks off the board, 2 guys from Colorado going number 1 and 3. And at number 4, we have the New England Patriots selecting 4th. Now, this is a no-brainer pick for me. They're going to select Abdul Carter, the best player available, beef up the already beef defense that they have been acquiring this free agency. And I think it's going to be a match made in heaven. Mike Vrabel, Abdul Carter. Perfect. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Jacksonville is quite the dumpster fire in my opinion. They're losing a lot. Could they select Teodoro McMillan? Maybe, but that's not very likely. I actually have them selecting Will Campbell, tackle from LSU. Now, in my big board a while back, I actually had Travis Hunter going number 5 to Jacksonville. But after the landscape of today and what we've seen over the past coming weeks, this just makes the most sense for me. At number 6, you have the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, what should the Raiders do here? Obviously, you look here and you see 30%. Do they pick Ashton Jeanty at 6? Is that a reach? In my opinion, for a running back, especially in a running back loaded draft class, it is a reach. So I have them selecting Teodoro McMillan from Arizona, wide receiver, which, in my opinion, is going to be a match made in heaven. Geno gets a wide receiver 1, who's a rookie, works perfect. Now the Jets. Obviously, they have Aaron Glenn at the helm leading the men in green, and I have them selecting Mason Graham. And this is just basically predicated on the fact that they need an interior lineman, and Mason Graham is an absolute stud from Michigan. So that who I have going number 7 for the Jets. Now, this could also change. I think, maybe does Tyler Warren go all the way 7 to the Jets, and that's a playmaker that you can, a multifaceted playmaker that you can pair Justin Fields with? Maybe. Could it be Genty? Absolutely not, because they have Bryce Hall, and they have a very good depth at running back anyway. Number 8, we have the Panthers. Now, the Panthers, in my opinion, obviously it says here they're clamoring for the D-line, clamoring for the DB. I have them selecting, and I think this may be a slight reach, I have them selecting James Pierce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee. His sheer athleticism propels him to be a top 10 pick, and I think this just works out perfect for what the Panthers are going to try to do. They're building a great defense. Obviously, they just signed J.C. Horn to the highest paid cornerback deal in NFL history. And, get some young players on the defensive end of the ball. Maybe get some guys in the second round for offense to help Bryce Young. But I see James Pierce going number 8 to the Panthers. Number 10. Number 10, we have the Chicago Bears. Now, I apologize. We have the New Orleans Saints. Got a little excited for the Chicago pick there for what I'm about to tell you guys. The New Orleans Saints, obviously people think they're going to take, Tyler Warren or a Luther Burden. I think Luther Burden will fall in the draft tremendously. So I do agree with this. I do see potentially Tyler Warren being picked, but we're going to take a look here. And I think this is where Walter Nolan goes to the New Orleans Saints, Mississippi to New Orleans, number 9 from Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. Absolute stud, absolute tremendous athlete. Is it a reach pick? It is. It really is. But I'm not in the business of giving you guys what everybody else thinks. This is what I think teams should do, and it just makes the most sense. Walter Nolan is a tremendous athlete, close to home, makes sense. Number 10, need I say more? Ashton Genty will go number 10 to the Chicago Bears, building an amazing offensive line over there, as well as this will help the development of Caleb Williams. They have a great wide receiver core. Ben Johnson leading the offense. No-brainer. Ashton Genty goes number 10 to the Chicago Bears. Now, at number 11, the San Francisco 49ers, who have had a horrible day in free agency, losing 2 of their best defensive players. Now, obviously here it says they need guard, tackle, and defensive linemen. After the loss of Tredarius Ward, do they draft a corner or a safety, a defensive back? I'm not sure. Or do you draft the replacement of Trent Williams to hopefully free up some cap? Well, I have them doing that, and I have them selecting Armand Mabo, tackle from Missouri, and moving on to the 12th pick. 12th pick, we have the Dallas Cowboys, obviously in dire need of just offense. They just need offense, something to really get them going. I also think they would benefit from an edge rusher, but I see them getting Tyler Warren without question. Obviously, they don't need a tight end, but you can't pass up on an offensive playmaker like Tyler Warren, the guy that he is. Now, Miami may lose out on Javon Holland, so I think either selecting Jediah Barron or Malachi Starks is going to be key for them. Now, when we look at Malachi Starks, look at these stats here. You have 62 tackles. You have, these are eye-popping. he was the best defensive player at Georgia in my opinion. He obviously plays deep a lot, and this is something that they're going to need. They're going to need a ball-hawking safety. So I think from Georgia, they're going to go ahead and select Malachi Starks there with the 13th pick. And at number 14, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Indy is, to be quite frank with you, they are nowhere near being contenders for the near future. But, they're building something nice with the defensive pieces. So I think they're going to continue to do that and select Jediah Barron with the 14th pick. Next on the clock, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons could select a multitude of different players here. Could we go? Where is he on here? Could they go Will Johnson? That is a big possibility. I think getting a corner to pair up with the players they already have there, I mean, of course it would make sense. Could Will Johnson, especially after what we've heard from his combine, he is slipping a little bit in the draft. Could 15 be where he falls? We don't know. I think linebacker Jediah Campbell makes the most sense for what they need. He's a great player. I think, 89 tackles speaks for itself. From the Crimson Tide, give me Jediah Campbell to the Falcons. Number 16, moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals, I think they're poised to make a playoff run this year. Obviously, they were so close, getting eliminated, I think, in the third to last game, which I think was a heartbreaker for them, losing to the Panthers. I really see them. They need to beef up the line, help out they gotta help out Kyler Murray. Come on now, they gotta help him. Maserati Marv needs some time to run his routes. Who do you select? I think you select Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle from Texas, who is a generational talent. In my opinion, could be All-Pro in the first year. When we look at him, Kelvin Banks Jr., and then we take a look at going number 5th overall to Jacksonville, Will Campbell. These are two offensive linemen who are in the rookie class that I believe have All-Pro potential in their first year, which is, for me to say that, it puts them in the same category as Quentin Nelson when he came out of the draft, because obviously he was All-Pro his first year. I think it makes the most sense. Now, next on the clock, we have the Bengals. Now, the Bengals, in my opinion, this is a no-brainer. I think they should select Will Johnson. I think they need a corner. They need defense. Defense is going to be key for them. They already franchise tagged T. Higgins. I believe they get a deal done with Jamar Chase, no problem. Give me Will Johnson resurrecting himself from second-round blasphemy, in my opinion. Going number 17 to the Bengals makes the most sense for me. At number 18, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Seattle need a lot, to be quite honest with you. Whether it's a center, guard, edge rusher, linebacker. Here it has them selecting Jediah Campbell, who I think will be gone. James Pierce gone. Kelvin Banks gone. So who do they select? Do they select the best player available? They possibly could do that. I think they should select a wide receiver. I think they should select Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State to pair with JSM, which would make the most sense. Gives Sam Darnold another weapon to throw to. And this, like I said, this is a retooling season for Seattle. Getting a guy like Emeka Egbuka could be huge for them if he has the ceiling that I think he has. Moving on, number 19th pick, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Definitely want to build on the defensive side of the ball. Who do I have them selecting? I have them selecting linebacker Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker from Georgia. I just see it happening. Obviously, we see Levante David getting a little older. Those guys are starting to age a little bit. Great mentor. Obviously, Buccaneers are still built to win now. If Jalen Walker has the ceiling that I think he'll have, he could potentially be a Pro Bowler first year, which could be big for them. And at number 20, the Denver Broncos, who will select an offensive player. This is almost certain. The question is, who will they select? I think Luther Burden for a long time was in talks to be a first-round selection. I think the combine as well as his season this year really dropped his stock. Could they select a tight end? Colston Loveland? Possibly. I think if Denver's going to select a tight end, when we look at this tight end class, there are a lot of good names here. They don't need to draft a tight end in the first round. So, with that being said, what does Denver do? I believe they select Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden will go number 20 to the Denver Broncos, a showcase of speed, a technician route runner, which is what the Broncos need, somebody who can get in the middle of the numbers and break outside the numbers. Give me Matthew Golden to the Broncos. Now, number 21, you got the Steelers on the clock. Obviously losing some pieces, but gaining some pieces in the process. They will not draft a wide receiver with the guys that they have here. So who do I have them selecting? I actually have them selecting on the defensive side of the ball here. So whether if you guys like obviously we don't like any of the corners here going first round or the safeties, give me, where's he at here? Give me Nick Manuare, safety from South Carolina. You're going to pair him with Minka Fitzpatrick on the other side. This guy is a stud athlete, had a great year at South Carolina, and I think you guys are really going to see him flourish in that Mike Tomlin system. Next up, we have the Chargers. Now, the Chargers here, a lot of the guys that they would have wanted are gone off the board, whether it's a wide receiver or a running back, and Genti, who I think they really would have wanted Genti before they probably knew he wasn't going to slip to 22, which is why they acquired Najee this year. I see them selecting a tight end, good old Michigan boy. Give him to Harbaugh, Colston Loveland to the Chargers. No brainer for me, in my opinion. Now, we look at the Packers. Now, I think the Packers are going to go defense here. I think they do select Mikael Williams, the edge from Georgia. I think it just makes sense to me. Obviously, Mike Green from Marshall is a beast. Don't get me wrong, he's a beast. But school does matter for me. It really does. And I think he is going to go first round. Don't get me wrong. I believe Mike Green will go first round. But I think the film that we have against elite teams in college, it's going to be Mikael Williams going number 23 to the Green Bay Packers. Now, number 24, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who could they select Mike Green? I just don't see it because they would need an interior lineman. So if I had to say somebody, I think another Michigan guy could fall off the board here. I think it could be Kenneth Grant, or let's look at some of the CBs here. I don't love Trey Amos going number 24. Give me Kenneth Grant. I think it happens. I really do. Kenneth Grant makes a lot of sense to me. Beef up that line for the Vikings. Number 25, the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Tennessee Titans have a lot of making up to do. I think they really need to get an offensive lineman here. I think what makes the most sense would be, my apologies there, would be to get Josh Simmons, tackle from Ohio State. Listen, you got rid of Laremy Tunsil, which I believe was not a very smart move on their end. So give me Josh Simmons, a great pass protector, to Houston, help out CJ Stroud. And there's a connection there, which I think which will really help anyway. LA Rams. Now, the LA Rams are in a interesting spot. We see they're going to get rid of Cooper Kupp, but they acquired Devontae Adams, so obviously offense is probably not what they're going to go after. They got their interior line beefed up pretty well. I actually see them going Mike Green here. This is where Mike Green comes off the board. And I know you guys are saying, well, Mike Green? What about Verse? Verse on the other side with Mike Green. That is a pairing of no other. And I think that's the trend you're going to start to see in the NFL. You're going to see these teams go out aggressively to pursue this left end, right end, double-headed monster rush to get to the quarterback, because I think a four-man rush is brutally important in the NFL nowadays. Now, get the Baltimore Ravens, 27th pick. Who do I see them selecting? Well, obviously their offensive line, they re-signed Ronnie Stanley to that 3-year, $60 million deal, which I believe is a steal. Should they go defense here? Maybe, possibly. If they do, I think it'll be in the later rounds, actually. If I had to see them pick somebody, I would probably say they would probably go edge rusher, select Donovan Izoroku, pardon the pronunciation there, from Boston College. He was a stud this year. I mean, when you look at it, the numbers, 14 sacks, 26 hurries. Now, that's going to be important when you make these playoff runs and you go playing Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. You want to get to the quarterback, and I believe Donovan oh my goodness, I can't even say his name. We're going to call him Donovan E. Donovan E is a great player for that. He obviously made some big noise in that Bill O'Brien system, and it's just a perfect fit. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions. Now, Detroit, in my opinion, they could select Chris Paul Jr. here. I think I'm super high on Chris Paul Jr. I like him. He is first-round talent, in my opinion. Obviously, it says Jalen Walker. I just see Jalen Walker going number 19. It makes the most sense. So, with that being said, we're going to take a look at these offensive linemen here, inside offensive linemen. The rankings that these guys have just don't fit the 28th pick. I think that they should select the best player available, and they should select Derek Harmon from Oregon, who is a interior lineman. But why not beef it up? Why not beef up the interior line when you know you have Ayden Hutchinson returning off the edge, and we don't know exactly what he's going to look like coming back from that injury. So it's going to be almost really important to make sure that there's a guy next to him that can also, get to the quarterback and stop the run, which Derek Harmon obviously proved at Oregon. Now, the Washington Commanders, a Super Bowl contending team now, in my opinion. I think this is where we see Luther Burden fly off the board. Now, obviously, you guys are saying they just acquired Debo and Terry McLaurin. I think the Luther Burden acquisition that they make with the 29th pick will be solely based off of them not being particularly confident in Debo Samuels and his play. He's obviously injury prone. We don't know what he's going to look like. Luther Burden III and Jaden Daniels, that connection could potentially be massive in the first couple games. You might already see a connection with those guys. Now, with the 30th pick, no-brainer in my opinion. They need interior linemen. Darius Alexander from Toledo goes number 30 to the Buffalo Bills to solidify that defensive lineman, which they already have a great D-line. With the 31st pick, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, will they reach here for a offensive lineman? I do see that. Obviously, there's Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. But, like I said, school matters for me, and the tape matters when you're playing big schools. Josh Connery Jr. is a guy that I really see them selecting. It makes the most sense here. From Oregon, he's a great pass protector, will help Patrick Mahomes almost immediately. Lastly, you have the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles lost some edge rushers, so who do I have them selecting? Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M to close out the first round in my mock draft 3.0. Now, obviously, it's going to give me a little grade on the first round here. This is it. Take a picture, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, my mock draft. Number 1, Travis Hunter. 2, Cam Ward. 3, Shedeur Sanders. I don't have to say the rest to you guys. You can just see it there on the screen. Take a picture. Mark it down in your books. It's going to happen. I won't be wrong. But with that being said, guys, I'm Damian Dusten. Just wanted to catch you guys up with NFL free agency as well as my mock draft 3.0 coming to you live on a Monday night, which is egregious. It's 11:32. It's time to go to bed. Much love. Damian Dusten out.